Chapter 4 Strike Commander in the Sanctuary. Sunday morning light poured through the kitchen window, soft and forgiving. Dave stood in front of the hallway mirror in jeans and a navy button-down, tugging at the collar like it might suddenly strangle him. He practiced a casual smile, caught his own eyes in the reflection, and winced. He looked like a man about to introduce his date to a firing squad. Zalina appeared in the doorway. She had chosen the most neutral items from her kit: dark tactical pants that moved like a second skin, a short-sleeved black base layer top with a high neck that covered her collarbone markings almost completely, and her matte black low-profile boots. Everything was matte, dark, and unadorned. She looked like a shadow trying to pass for a civilian. Dave turned. "Ready?" "I am equipped for the environment," she said. "The footwear provides traction, the garments minimize profile." He huffed a small laugh. "You're going to give the greeters a heart attack anyway." "Then they are poorly conditioned." She stepped closer, inspecting his reflection beside hers. The height difference forced him to tilt his head up slightly. Even through the fabric, he could still feel the faint radiant warmth coming off her. "You are fidgeting," she observed. "Yeah. Church isn't usually a high-stakes environment for me. Today it might be." Zalina considered that. "I do not experience nerves. I assess variables." Her markings pulsed once through the high collar, soft, almost uncertain. Dave caught the faint cyan glow through the sleeve and felt something loosen in his chest. "Let's go assess some variables, then." They left together. Dave held the door. Zalina stepped through without hesitation. The morning air was crisp and the neighborhood quiet except for distant lawnmowers and the faint smell of coffee drifting from someone's open window. They drove the short distance in comfortable silence, windows cracked and warm August air carrying the scent of cut grass. The parking lot was already filling when they arrived. Most of the seats in the sanctuary were taken as people waited for service to start. There were a few curious glances, quick, polite, the kind that lingered half a second longer than they ought to, but no one said anything. Dave guided Zalina toward the back row, 2 empty seats near the aisle. They slipped in quietly and the lights dimmed. Then the drums hit like a shockwave. Zalina froze beside him. Her markings flared bright cyan for a heartbeat, pure, startled surprise. She went very still, amber eyes wide, taking in the wall of sound and motion like someone who had just stepped into a sudden boarding action. Dave leaned in close, voice low under the volume. "It's going to be a loud morning." She blinked once, slowly. The cyan glow dimmed back to its normal faint pulse. "This is worship?" "Yeah, when the spirit hits." Zalina tilted her head, scanning the room again, not as a threat assessment, but as someone trying to recalibrate an entire category of human behavior. "They express devotion through maximum decibels and hand-waving?" Dave nearly choked on a laugh. "Pretty much. Welcome to my church." She watched. Her markings pulsed in slow, curious rhythm, syncing unconsciously with the bass line. She didn't sing, she didn't raise her hands, but she didn't leave either. The sermon began after the final song. The pastor, in his mid-30s with jeans and an untucked shirt, with an easy smile, stepped to the center of the stage. He greeted everyone and especially greeted the few concordance members in attending, in addition to Zalina. Then he opened his Bible. He spoke on Matthew 11:28-30 and Philippians 4:13. He moved through the message with the same easy warmth he'd used to open the service, but one passage landed differently and much harder than Zalina expected. He said, "We're told strength means never backing down, never showing weakness, always being the one in control. And honestly, that's exhausting. I've spent years trying to be the strongest version of myself, provider, leader, protector, and I still ended up burned out, angry, and alone in my own head." He paused, letting the words settle. "But Jesus didn't say, 'Come to me when you've got it all together.' He said, 'Come to me when you're weary.' The strongest thing you can do sometimes isn't fighting harder, it's laying down the fight and letting someone else carry the weight for a while." Zalina listened with her usual stillness. When the pastor moved on to Philippians and said, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light," her markings dimmed briefly, a flicker gone in a heartbeat. She didn't move. She didn't speak. But something shifted inside her. The words should have been meaningless. In House Galtor doctrine, burdens were carried alone or not at all. To lay one down was to fail the line, to weaken the formation, and to invite collapse. She had been trained since childhood to bear the full weight of command decisions, of squad losses, and to endure the endless calculus of victory without compromise. Yielding was not strength. It was surrender, and surrender had a body count. Yet the pastor spoke of it as relief. Not defeat and not shame, but relief. She had never heard the concept framed that way. No commander had ever offered to take her weight. No strike team had ever asked if she was weary. The idea that someone might, willingly and without obligation, carry part of what she carried felt like a tactical error she could not dismiss. It unsettled her more than the volume of the music had. Coffee hour arrived like a release valve, the lobby filled with chatter, the smell fresh of donuts, and music playing softly in the background. People fellowshipped, hugged, laughed, and balanced paper cups and powdered sugar pastries while dodging the children running underfoot. Then the rumor group found them. 4 of them. Younger, phone-in-hand types who'd clearly seen the mini-golf photos circulating in the church group chat. The worship bassist led the charge with a wide grin. "Dave, dude, we saw the pics. Wild, you're dating a strike commander?" The young mom beside him jumped in. "I googled her. House Galtor, boarding ops, orbital strikes, and you're you." The tech guy laughed. "No offense, man, but the compatibility algorithm must be drunk." She could clearly bench press the entire worship team. Dave felt his face heat up as he opened his mouth to deflect. Zalina spoke first, donut in hand, calm, precise, and loud enough for the growing circle of people to hear her. "The Concordance Genetics Survey rated us at 98.7% compatibility. I do not question the data." There was a moment of stunned silence. The bassist recovered first. "Okay, but seriously, how's the trial going? How many days in? Has she decided if you're, good enough?" The question landed like a slap. Dave froze. 2 days and he hadn't proven anything to anyone. He hadn't had the time. And now a lobby full of people were waiting for his girlfriend, sort of, to publicly rate him. Zalina tilted her head, considering. "He provides balance," she said. "I provide dominance. It is complementary." The group burst into nervous laughter and Dave turned scarlet. The young mom grinned. "That's one way to put it." Zalina regarded them all. "The assessment is ongoing. Dave is performing adequately. The data is still being collected." Dave managed a strangled laugh. "Can we not do the performance review in the lobby?" More laughter, louder this time. Someone clapped him on the shoulder. "Good luck, man. You're gonna need it." The group drifted off, still chuckling, leaving a small wake of awkward laughter behind them. Dave exhaled through his nose. "Well, that happened." Zalina regarded him. "They find the situation improbable." "Yeah," he said. "They're not wrong." She tilted her head slightly. 2 days is insufficient for conclusive assessment. They appear to expect immediate results. Dave huffed a small laugh. "Welcome to small-town life. Everything moves fast when there's nothing else to talk about." They stepped away from the donut table, drifting towards the exit. The lobby was thinning out as people were hugging goodbye and kids were running out the door. The worship band packing up their gear in the background. Dave kept his hands in his pockets and Zalina walked beside him, close enough that he could feel the steady warmth coming off of her skin, but not so close that it felt deliberate. In the parking lot, the sun was high and bright. Dave unlocked the car and opened the passenger door out of habit, and Zalina slid in without comment. He started the engine but didn't pull out yet. The dashboard clock read 11:47. Sunday was still young. 2 days, he said, half to himself. It feels longer and shorter at the same time. Zalina looked at him. Time perception is subjective. In high-stress environments, it compresses. In low-stakes observation, it expands. He smiled, small and genuine. "You make everything sound like a tactical brief." "It is more efficient," she said. Then quieter, "But I am beginning to understand why humans tolerate inefficiency." Dave glanced over. "Yeah? Your people value the process as much as the outcome. I have not encountered that before." He let that sit for a second. "And what about you? What do you value?" Zalina looked out the windshield at the parking lot emptying around them. Precision, endurance, and Clarity of purpose. A pause. I have not often considered whether those are sufficient. Dave nodded slowly. Fair. I'm still figuring out what's sufficient for me, too. Neither of them spoke for the rest of the drive home. The radio stayed off. The windows were cracked, and warm August air carried the smell of cut grass and distant barbecue. It wasn't uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of silence that happens when two people realize that they're completely comfortable just being. When they pulled into the driveway, Dave killed the engine. Thanks for coming, he said. I know it wasn't exactly a controlled environment. Zalina unbuckled her seatbelt. Controlled environments are overrated. Variables reveal more than constants. He laughed quietly. You're gonna make me start thinking like you. Unlikely, she said, but I'm willing to continue collecting data. Dave met her eyes. Same. Monday morning arrived at 0500 with the same quiet inevitability as a scheduled boarding action. Zalina was already at his bedroom door. Dave's alarm chirped. He flopped back onto the pillow, one arm flung over his eyes, voice thick with sleep and exaggerated defeat. 5 minutes. Zalina did not debate. She crossed the small room in 2 strides, bent at the knees with the same economy she used for lifting cargo crates, and slid one arm under his shoulders, the other beneath his knees. He weighed less than a standard boarding shield and lifted him without effort, his body folding easily against her chest. The sound he made was sharp and startled, a high yelp that cut off almost immediately. His muscles locked rigid for the 3 heartbeats it took her to carry him through the doorway and into the hall. Then she set him down gently on his feet. This is faster, she said as she walked away. He stood frozen, blinking rapidly, cheeks flushed dark red. One hand shot out to grip the doorframe as though it were the only stable point in the galaxy. Never again, he muttered, already turning toward the bathroom on unsteady legs. She watched him go, noting the way his shoulders hunched in residual embarrassment. The cyan along her neck gave a single faint pulse. Amusement, plain and unmistakable, though she would not have named it aloud to anyone else. They cleared space in the living room, the couch shoved aside, coffee table pushed against the wall. Zalina wore her usual black base layer and pants. Dave appeared in running shorts and a faded band shirt that said something about a cat being both dead and alive. She didn't ask. Humans liked their slogans. Start with alignment, she said, dropping into the stance, her knees soft and weight centered as her arms extended in a clean guard. 90 seconds. Breathe through it, feel the floor, and feel your center. Dave copied her. His knees trembled at 15 seconds. Sweat appeared on his brow by 45. This is just fancy yoga with a side of torture, he said through gritted teeth. Yoga borrowed from older forms. Ours were built for high gravity and boarding pods. The point isn't comfort, it's readiness. Her markings gave a slow, even pulse along her forearms. Calm cyan light. She watched his form and noted the way his shoulders crept up towards his ears. Drop the shoulders. Engage the core instead. He adjusted and held. When the 90 seconds were up, he exhaled hard and shook out his legs. Zalina noted the exact moment his form began to break, shoulders creeping, breath turning ragged at the 80-second mark, but she let the full count finish in silence. They moved on. Lunges that mimicked crossing uneven terrain, wall sits until the burn set in, controlled drops that trained the descent from a height. Zalina flowed through each motion like water finding the easiest path. Dave followed, awkward at first, then finding small efficiencies, a wider stance here and a slower breath there. She corrected him with light touches, fingers on his elbow to straighten the line, palms against his lower back to flatten the curve. Each contact lingered just long enough to guide, then withdrew. During the last hold, a plank with one arm lifted, she spoke without shifting her gaze from the wall. On Dravok Prime, we do this at first light. Anyone who drops is sent to support duties for a cycle. It teaches you what you're made of and makes you improve. Dave's voice came in tight. And did you ever drop? Once. I was 16 cycles old, and I dropped during the final alignment hold. They reassigned me to 3 days of scrubbing forge decks. She let the memory surface just long enough to feel its edges. The pastor's words from yesterday drifted through it unbidden. Come to me when you're weary, letting someone else carry the weight for a while. For the first time, she wondered what that day at 16 would have felt like if someone, anyone, had simply said, "Rest. I will take this burden for you." The thought was alien, dangerous. In House Galtor, such an offer would have been weakness, not mercy. Yet the idea refused to leave her alone, a hairline fracture in the doctrine she had lived by without question for decades. Tuesday and Wednesday repeated the same pattern. Rise at 0500, clear the floor, alignment, lunges, holds, breathing, and so on. Dave still complained, quietly, under his breath, but the volume had dropped. His body, however, had no such restraint. By Tuesday evening, his thighs burned like he'd spent the day hauling crates uphill. Wednesday morning, he woke already stiff, every step down the hallway registering as a dull protest from muscles he hadn't known existed. The alignment hold made his quads tremble almost immediately. The lunges left him wincing on the descent. His plank collapsed at 60 seconds instead of 70, and when he tried to push back up, his arms shook like they belonged to someone else. Zalina watched it all without comment. She lengthened the counts by 10 seconds, introduced the thin resistance bands from her kit looped around his thighs for the lunges. She did not soften the progression. She simply observed, adjusted, and waited to see what he would do with the added load. He rose to it, slowly, painfully and stubbornly. No dramatic breakthroughs, just small, grudging increments. Knees that shook for 40 seconds instead of 30, a plank that held for 65 before giving out, breaths that came ragged but still matched hers for the final cycles. Each session ended with him on the floor, breathing hard, sweat soaking his shirt, while she stood, unbothered, markings pulsing steady and calm. By Wednesday mid-morning, Dave was already moving like someone who had been hit by a low-speed cargo truck. He rose from his chair to refill his coffee, and his first step made him hiss through clenched teeth, quads and hamstrings protesting in unison. He braced one hand on the desk edge, paused, then forced himself upright with the grim determination of a man refusing to admit defeat to his own furniture. Zalina watched from the kitchen doorway, arms folded loosely, cataloging the small tells. The way his knee locked for a fraction longer than normal, the shallow breath he took before bending to pick up a dropped pen, the faint grimace when he settled back into his ergonomic chair. The soreness had deepened exactly as she had anticipated. Terran connective tissue responded slowly to accelerated loading. The morning's holds and lunges had left micro-tears that now inflamed with every shift of posture. Yet he didn't stop. He adjusted his chair height twice, stood to pace the length of the living room once, each step deliberate and measured, then returned to the monitors and resumed flagging discrepancies in a House Galtor titanium shipment log. The same focus he brought to the alignment holds, refusing to drop even when the burn became unbearable, appeared here in a quieter form. She felt a quiet flicker of respect for that stubbornness. Not flashy, not efficient in the way her house prized, but persistent and reliable, something she realized that she could begin to lean on. The sermon's words returned again, unwelcome, laying down the fight. She pushed the thought aside. There was no one here to carry her weight, and she had never asked for it. That afternoon, while Dave worked at his monitors, Zalina retreated to the guest room. She opened her secure comms tablet and completed the routine upload in silence. Then, a new transmission arrived. The House Galtor channel, medium priority and encrypted. She accepted. The text unfolded in sharp cyan. Strike Commander Galtor, Trial Day 5 metrics received. Concordance Subcommittee approves the continuation of current pairing. Terran, David Harlan, 98.7% genetic match, through Day 30. Note: prior to Accord reassignment, your profile was priority matched with Strike Major Vren Thalkor, House Thalrin, 89.4% compatibility, tactical synergy, 85.8%. Thalkor detachment remains open. House Command prefers consolidation of high-value assets within the core houses. Should Terran viability fall short by end of trial, immediate reassignment to Thalkor will be enforced. Transmission of final recommendation on schedule. No immediate action required. House Galtor Liaison Office. Zalina read it twice. The markings along her neck veins flared brighter for a heartbeat, then dimmed to baseline. She closed the message, and the hologram folded away. She did not log it in her daily report to Dave. Instead, she walked to the living room doorway and watched him, headphones on, fingers moving fast across the keyboard, muttering at a stubborn column of numbers, the same stubborn focus he brought to the morning holds, refusing to drop even when every muscle screamed. The message pressed against the inside of her ribs. Not quite pain, but something close to it. A quiet ache she could not name. She had spent years measuring compatibility in percentages and synergy ratings. The numbers had always been enough. Now they felt suddenly thin, inadequate against the sight of him here, tired, refusing to quit, but still achingly human. For the first time in a long while, the optimal path did not feel clean. It felt like something she might want to walk away from. Thursday evening, Dave found her in the kitchen, standing over his old Aetherclash binder. She had opened it, studying the card layouts with quiet attention. "Caught your eye?" he asked, voice still carrying the day's fatigue, but softened with curiosity. "These are layered strategies," she said. "Denial, control, contingencies built on contingencies." A small, genuine smile tugged at his mouth. "My favorite way to spend a Friday night." She closed the binder with careful fingers, the plastic cover making a soft click. "Perhaps we will try it soon." He leaned against the counter, watching her. "I'd be up for that." Zalina met his eyes for a moment, then inclined her head. "Then we will." Outside, night settled over the neighborhood in a hush of porch lights and distant laughter. Inside, they moved through the motions of a traditional Dravok dinner. Plates set out, Vethkar poured, the low clink of silverware. One carried a secret she wasn't ready to share. The other carried the small growing certainty that these days were beginning to feel less like duty and more like something worthwhile. Zalina's amber gaze lingered on Dave a fraction longer than required. The pastor's words still echoed beneath her calm exterior. "Come to me when you're weary," clashing against the sharp cyan text of the house message still burning behind her eyes. Precision, endurance, clarity of purpose. Those had always been enough. Tonight, for the first time, they felt incomplete. The trial moved forward, one measured step at a time. But the optimal path no longer felt clear.